Everyone, quiet, please.
Huwag mo pagalitin,
Third
bigyan mo ng
session
pera.
of the Senate in the second regular session of the 18th Congress, in taking into consideration the proclamation of a special session is hereby called to order. Senator Sani Angara will lead the chamber in prayer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Panginoon, salamat po sa panibagong araw at sa biyaya ng buhay ng bawat isa. Kami po ay muling narito upang tumupad sa aming tungkulin at naway patuloy ninyong gabayan sa aming mga gawain, lalo na ito'y para sa ating mga kababayan. Lord, hanggang sa ngayon patuloy ang aming pakikibaka laban sa pandemya. Dalangin namin, Panginoon, na kayo ang maging proteksyon ng bawat isa laban sa karamdamang ito. Hanggang ngayon, wala pang nakababatid kung kailan magwawakas ang pagsubok na ito sa mundo. Naway tulungan niyo po kaming umahon at magpursigi para sa ligtas at maliwanag na bukas. Naway gabayan niyo po ang bawat isa at tulungan ng aming bansa, ang mamamayan, na makabangon sa lahat ng sigalot na ito. Sa ngalan ni Jesus. Amen.
Amen. The Secretary will please call the roll.
Roll call of members, the Honorable Senators Angara,
Present.
Binay,
Present.
Cayetano,
Present.
De Lima, De La Rosa, Ilon,
President,
Gatchalian, Go, Gordon,
President,
Ontiveros,
Present.
Lacson, Lapid, Marcos, Pacquiao,
Present.
Pangilinan,
President,
Pimentel III, Ho,
Present.
Recto, Revilla,
President,
Tolentino,
Present,
Villanueva, Villar,
Present.
Zubiri.
Present.
Senate President Soto III is present.
With 4 senators physically present and 18 senators virtually present, for a total of 22, the chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we dispense with the reading of the Journal of the 22nd session, Monday, October 12, and consider the same as approved.
Any objection? Here is none. The journal is approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
The Secretary will proceed with the reference of business.
Reference of business, bills on first reading. Senate number 1880, entitled An Act Mandating the Institutionalizing Rollover Data Allocation Scheme, providing for penalties and for other purposes, introduced by Senator Lapid.
Referred to the Committee on Public Services.
Senate number 1881, an act amending Republic Act number 8047, otherwise known as the Book Publishing Industry Development Act, providing for the scanning and conversion of public school textbooks into e-books and other digital formats, introduced by Senator Lapid.
Referred to the Committee on Basic Education.
Senate number 1882, an act converting Pio Model Community in Barangay Pio, Municipality of Porac, Province of Pampanga, into a barangay to be known as Barangay Adelina for other purposes, introduced by Senator Lapid.
To the Committee on Rules.
Senate number 1883, an act converting Sitio Camachile in Barangay Mawacat, Municipality of Florida Blanca, Province of Pampanga, into barangay to be known as Barangay Camachile and for other purposes, introduced by Senator Lapid.
To the Committee on Rules.
Senate number 1884, an act converting Sitio Malabni in Barangay Mawacat, Municipality of Florida Blanca, Province of Pampanga, into barangay and for other purposes, introduced by Senator Lapid.
To the Committee on Rules.
Resolutions, PS Resolution number 544, resolution expressing the profound sympathy and sincere condolences of the Senate of the Philippines on the death of environmentalist and former Negros Occidental Governor Alfredo G. Marañon Jr., introduced by Senator Zubiri.
To the Committee on Rules.
PS Resolution number 545, resolution recognizing and congratulating Jesus is Lord Church for celebrating its 42nd founding anniversary on 25 October 2020, introduced by Senator Pacquiao.
Approved. I'm joking. Go to the Committee on Rules. Majority Leader.
Yes. Nagulat ako dun, Mr. President. So,
Thank you.
yes, Mr. President. Mr. President, with the permission of the body,
Mr. President, Mr. President, Mr. President.
yes, we recognize Senator Tolentino.
Just an inquiry, Mr. President. Previously, and it has been the tradition of this body that almost, if not all, measures relative to barangays and other local government units are referred to the Committee on Local Government. May we know the procedure now, Mr. President? Why I heard 3 measures emanating from perhaps the gentleman from Pampanga. Why those measures were referred to the Committee on Rules?
I know. Yes, it has always been the practice. It will be referred to the Committee on Local Government when it has
Once
already
this,
arrived,
yes.
when it comes from the House, because these are bills of local application. If a senator files a bill that is a bill of local application, it is referred first to the Committee on Rules, awaiting the House version or the House bill. When the House bill arrives, and that's the only time that, including the Senate bill, we will be referred to the proper committee. In this case, the 3 committees that you heard will be referred, or the 3 bills will be referred to the Committee on Local Government. A number of local bills have been also filed by Senator Amy Marcos, and it is the same procedure that has been followed before and up to the present.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, just to add, Mr. President, it is under our rules, section 16 of our rules, that these measures of local application, if filed by a senator without a counterpart from the House reaching us, will be parked first to the Committee on Rules, Mr. President. Until the measure from the House arrives, then we refer it to the committee that is designated, Mr. President, under section 16.
Correct.
That's right.
Correct. All right.
Ito po, just to read, it's all appropriations, revenues, or tariff bills of authorizing increase of public debt, bills of local application, private bills authored and filed by members of the Senate shall be initially referred to the Committee on Rules. So tama po yung ruling niya, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Senator
Majority
Dillon
Leader.
would like to be recognized, Mr. President.
Senator, the Minority Leader is raising his hand.
Yes, yes, we agree with the ruling, Mr. President. Just as an addition, when the committee reports out the bill, what should be reported out is the House bill, taking into consideration the Senate bill filed by a colleague. That's all that you want to place of record, Mr. President.
Correct. Thank you. Majority Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, with the permission of the body, I move that we consider proposed Senate Resolution number 544. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Motion is approved.
May we ask the Secretary, Mr. President, to read the title of the resolution?
The Secretary will read the title of the resolution.
Yes, resolution number 544, resolution expressing the profound sympathy and sincere condolences of the Senate of the Philippines on the death of environmentalist and former Negros Occidental Governor Alfredo G. Marañon Jr.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I be allowed to sponsor the measure, Mr. President?
Yes, please do so.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I would just like to take a moment to honor my good friend and mentor, Negros Occidental Governor Alfredo Marañon, who passed away earlier this month at the age of 84. He was a visionary who changed Negros. His agriculture and environmental initiatives to the province were groundbreaking. His background in farming anchored by his policies and his vision of what development should look like for Negros. Under his leadership, there was a substantial growth in organic agriculture across the province, providing livelihood to thousands of farmers, and he also took a hardline stance against coal and converted the province into renewable energy. It was during his stint as governor, Mr. President, wherein Negros became the solar power capital of the Philippines. He built his projects and policies around Negros First, all his encompassing flagship program that introduced development in natural resources, the economy, governance, poverty reduction, healthcare, education, food security, information and communications technology, as well as infrastructure, social services, and tourism. He really turned Negros Occidental into a major ecotourism site, especially with the Sagay Marine Reserve, which is possibly one of the most beautiful places in the country, with its pristine waters, white sand, and diverse aquatic life. And it's all thanks to Governor Maranyon that that we were able to keep this place well protected. As a young environmentalist back in the 11th Congress, I really looked up to him. And I'm so blessed to have had the opportunity to work with him in our time together as congressman in the 11th Congress. And of course, he was a brilliant governor and he was able to unite for a very long time the province of Negros Occidental, which was key to the development of the province. Being my roots, Mr. President, coming from Kabangkalan, Negros Occidental, before we moved to Bukidnon, I'm I'm proud to say that we will miss him deeply, and we're very proud of his stint as governor as well as congressman. And I'm sure that the province feels this loss deeply as well. So thank you, Mr. President, and I hope that we can approve this measure with the support of my colleagues.
Mr.
Mr. President?
President,
Senator
Mr.
Villar is recognized.
yeah, I want to support the resolution of our good Senator Juan Miguel Subiri. I always go to Negros before the pandemic, and I used to spend a lot of time with Governor Marañon, and he's really very supportive of agriculture. So it's true that we have to admire him. He's very developmental oriented. So I support the resolution. Thank you very much.
President, Mr. President.
Thank you,
That's,
Mr. President. Senator
Majority
Drilon would
Leader,
also like to be
numbers.
recognized, and Senator Villanueva, Senator Angara, Senator Ontiveros after, and
Again,
Senator
first one.
Pangilinan as well.
Thank you, Mr. President, for and may we officially request the majority leader to allow us to be a co-author and co-sponsor of this resolution. Fred Marañon was more than a public official to me. He was a personal friend. We spent many moments together discussing about how Negros and Western Visayas can move forward. He was a visionary. He had the vision of having a Negros Island region. Not many of you know that, but he was one pushing and succeeded to have a Negros Island region separate from Region 6. And we did discuss this extensively, and he requested for my support. And I saw the need for a united Negros Island region, and I did throw my support. Unfortunately, the policies of the present administration did not jive with the proposal, and principally because of difficulty in our resources, the additional administrative structure of one more region compelled this administration to unbundle the executive order which created the one Negros region. Although technically and legally it is not in existence, but in the vision and in the mind and purpose of the late Governor Marañon, he always thought and fought for a one Negros region because it was his honest belief that all the programs of government can be better served with a united Negros Island. With that, we wish to co-author and co-sponsor the measure honoring the memory of the late Governor Fred Marañon. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr.
Majority
President,
Leader,
Senator Villanueva would like to be recognized as well.
Senator Joel Villanueva is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you, Majority Floor Leader. It is this representation's humble request to the principal author, Senator Mig Subiri, that I may be a co-author and co-sponsor of the measure, Mr. President. Governor Marañon is a great friend, mentor, a tech advocate, and I will repeat what Senator Frank Drilon mentioned a while ago. He is a visionary Mr. President, I distinctly remember when the BPO industry is just emerging. I remember him asking me to sit down with him and talk about how the entire Negros Occidental would be able to exploit that opportunity, Mr. President, in offering call center call centers and other related job opportunities for the people of Negros Occidental. And we will miss him deeply. We also like to put on record our sincerest condolences to his family and to the people of Negros Occidental. Again, we'd like to put on record, if with the permission of the sponsor, this representation's desire to be co-author and sponsor of the measure. Thank you, Mr. President, and may God bless us all.
Mr. President, I move that we make all members of the Senate co-authors so that at least we can really give our profound sympathy to the family, being unanimous about it. Mr. President, there are several other colleagues who would like. Senator Angara raised his hand, after which Senator Risa, Senator Marcos, and Senator Revilla.
All right.
Thank you.
Senator Sani Angara is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Majority Leader. Again, like my colleagues who have spoken before, I'd like to ask for the privilege of being a co-author of the good Majority Leader. And like our colleagues mentioned earlier, former Governor Mara&ntilde was a very gentle, genial man, very soft-spoken, but very determined in his quest to make life for his province mates better. And pursuant to what my good friend Senator Joel said, he provided the land for the ICT hub in Negros, which produced 30,000 jobs for Negros, Mr. President. I was given a tour a few years ago. And before the 2019 election, Senator Cayetano and I were guests during their Provincial Farmers Day, their provincial complex. And he even had hosted a lunch for us where his children were there, his grandchildren were there. So really nothing but good memories for this man and what he has done. Nothing but respect for him. Thank you, Majority Leader. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, Senator Risa Ontiveros, after which Senator
Senator
Revilla.
Risa Ontiveros is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to the Majority Leader for including me and all of us as co-authors co-sponsors of the resolution. I respectfully request also to be made a co-author. Our resolution honoring the life and memory of former Negros Occidental Governor Alfredo G. Marañon Jr., of whom I am a relative in the Miraflores clan. As the article in the Philippine Daily Inquirer described, Manong Freddy was a farmer, civil engineer, and aquaculturist with a passion for protecting the environment and for organic agriculture, and as well for universal health care. Wow, Manong Freddy could spend a whole afternoon just shooting the breeze about organic farming and aquaculture, two among the many great passions of his life. As well, he could spend hours talking about universal health care, as I experienced in the former example one day with former Ahoy Iloilo Mayor Jet Rojas, and in the latter example, one day that I was able to pay a courtesy call on him at the Capitolio. I will always remember and treasure Manong Freddy's kindness of heart towards me as a younger relative, and his generosity of mind towards me as a younger politician. With all the colleagues here in the Senate, I express my deepest and loving condolences with his wife, Manang Dr. Marilyn, his children, including third mayor now and formerly a very kind colleague of mine in the House of Representatives, during the 13th and 14th Congresses, Manang Eday as well, and their other siblings. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Oh, and PS, yes, as the minority leader recalled, in terms of local governance, Manong Freddy was a true visionary and very bold pioneer with that unprecedented attempt to set up the One Negros Island, one island on the basis of ecological and economic reasons. For one brief shining moment, a great, great dream that we actually saw realized in our republic. Once again, marami pong salamat, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. If Senator Revilla will allow, ladies first, si Ma'am Amy. I forgot na una si Ma'am Amy. Ma'am Amy,
Yes,
please.
Senator Amy Marcos is recognized.
Thank you very much, Senate President and my majority leader. It's an honor and a pleasure to be included as a co-author this resolution expressing our sympathy and sincere condolences to Governor Freddy Marañon. Like many whose lives he touched, Governor Freddy was a treasured family friend, a dear colleague in both Congress and the League of Governors, and most of all, my fellow advocate for agriculture, the environment, and renewable energy. I still have not lost hope, as I am certain he never did, that in some shape or form, in some not so distant future, his dream of a Negros Island region will somehow be realized. To Doctora, to Mayor Turdi, and the rest of the clan, our deepest condolences. Thank you.
Thank you. So
After,
next,
thank you, Mr. President. Senator Revilla, after which Senator Pangilinan and Senator Gordon.
Senator
Thank
Bong
you, Mr.
Revilla is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to extend my deepest condolences and sympathies to the family of former Negros Occidental Governor Alfredo Marañon Jr. He served as councilor, vice mayor, and then mayor of Sagay City. He then became member of Batasan Pambansa and eventually a three-term congressman of the 2nd District of Negros Occidental from 1995 to 2004. After his stint in Congress, he went back to his home province where he served as its governor. He is best known for his environmental advocacies and policies while leading the economic progress and development of the province under the Negros First Development Agenda. It is under his term that Negros Occidental was recognized by the Department of Interior and Local Government as the best performing province in Region 6. Because of his efforts, the province also became Hall of Fame awardee for being the best tourism-oriented local government unit. The province is also recognized as the renewable energy capital of the Philippines. With his many achievements and immense contribution to the province and to the country, it is truly saddening to have lost a great and effective public servant. Again, we offer our condolences and prayers to the family and to the people of Negros Occidental in this time of mourning. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Francis Pangilinan is recognized. And then
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Majority Leader. We'd like to thank the Majority Leader for allowing us to be co-sponsor and co-author of this measure. When I was chairman of the Senate Committee on Agriculture from 2010 to 2013, I had the opportunity to visit Negros province on several occasions. And this is where I was able to precisely get to know Governor Fred more, and his passion and advocacy for organic agriculture actually inspired me to go into agriculture, organic agriculture myself when I went full-time farming after I stepped down as a senator in 2013. Truly a visionary, truly a passionate public servant, and we will miss him. And I hope someone will fill in his huge shoes in organic farming advocacy, not just in Negros. He was a champion of organic agriculture nationwide, hosted several conferences, national conferences on organic farming, and he will be missed. And we thank him. I believe I am in organic farming now, inspired by his example. And we express our condolences to the Marañon family. Thank you, Majority Leader. And for the record, we appreciate our being co-author of this measure. Thank you.
Senator Richard Gordon, recognized.
Very much, Mr. President. And I'd like to congratulate Mick Subiri for his wisdom in making sure that Governor Marañon and the Marañon family are recognized in Toto, because Toto Freddy's brother was also governor and mayor of Sagay once upon a time. And, you know, in our country, sometimes when you're no longer in power, you're dust in the wind, Mr. President. Very rare do people get recognized after they pass on or after they retire. There was one general who told me once upon a time, I will not mention his name. He was a general during the time President Marcos, a long-standing general, and we said, you know, Dick, after he retired as chief of staff and he stayed on for a long time, you'd be lucky when you go to Camp Aguinaldo if they give you a salute. Nobody cares about you anymore. So I congratulate Senator Subiri for, you know, this one slipped between the cracks of my mind, and I'm glad Senator Subiri was there to save the day for the Senate. I'd like to congratulate the Senate because we remember good men and women who serve our country, and that's why we all stand up and honor Toto Freddy Marañon. My wife and I knew the Marañons for a long time. They were both mayors. Joseph and Toto Freddy, I was a mayor. I had occasion to be with him in some of our meetings. Also, his brother Joseph, who I remember now very, very vividly, and I traveled to Asia Development Bank sponsored meets, and I guess it rubbed up on Toto Freddy, who eventually became one of the best governors of the country. And why not? Environmentally savvy, you know, ahead of many governors in terms of the NIPAS, where, you know, if you go to Sagay, you cannot afford not to go to that sandbar in Sagay, which the Marañon family spearheaded. And certainly they are good friends. They stay your friends for long, long, long periods of time. And having said that also, Mr. President, I commend Senator Governor Marañon for having catapulted Negros Occidental as a food-sufficient agricultural province, and other things such as through this Negros First campaign. You know, local governments, people who call local people like me or the Marañons, we do a lot of initiatives, but unfortunately, most of the time, these visions, these ideas are burnt by the national government. I'm generalizing, of course, pero pagka ikaw ay may sabi na local government official, pagka ikaw walang koneksyon sa taas, lahat ng pangarap mo ay magiging usyami at kakalimutan o hindi na itutuloy. But I'm glad that kahit na hindi natuloy yung Negros First, Negros 1 actually, or Negros First, nakita natin na the Negrenses were very, very, confident, inspired by his passion not only for business development, agricultural development, but his passion for organic farming. So, you know, they had 15,000 hectares of organic farms with 12,920 organic farmers. Well, I already said that Sagay Marine Reserve and under the NIPAS program. And of course, I've always thought, like I said, that Negros would be a super candidate to become a free port by itself because it is an island unto itself, surrounded by islands, and therefore you can establish a separate customs territory from the Philippines. And we have discussed this time and again whenever I go to Negros. I would like to express my deepest condolences to his family, particularly to Dr. Marilyn Delisay Marañon and all his children, Anne Marie, Conchi, Eileen Lontok, Alfred III, Agnes Lida, Carmela Valderrama, Anthony Albert, and Arthur. Mr. President, I am honored to be part of this, and I thank Senator Zubiri for allowing me and other senators to co-sponsor or co-author this resolution to remember a very good man and a very good family as well. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Majority
Mr.
Leader.
President, can we recognize also Senator Grace Poe, Mr. President?
Senator Grace Poe is recognized.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President, Majority Leader. Majority Leader, for including us to be your co-authors to this measure. I would like to express our sincere condolences to the Marañon family. I have not really been that long in politics, but I remember when I was a neophyte candidate, he actually was very gracious in accepting us and helping us in Negros. He was also met by my father before, and I know that he was also nice to FPJ. And just knowing about all the things that he's done for Negros, he was a formidable leader. In fact, even when he wasn't in power, people would still really defer to him and his views on certain issues. So I would just like to include that for the record. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I truly appreciate that all our colleagues would like to be co-author and co-sponsor. He truly was a visionary. And I recall when he was governor, dyan lumakas yung organic agriculture sa Negros. I used to attend those alter trade. They used to have those alter trade fairs, agri fairs in Negros, where they had all these banana chips, vegetables that are dried vegetables, fruits that are all organically grown, even the sheep and goats that were grown by their provincial agricultural office was given away to all these beneficiaries from north to south of Negros Occidental. Hindi po sa research lang. I know pet peeve ni Tita Cynthia yan. Palaging research. Siya hindi lamang research, talagang actual implementation of the research. That's what he wanted to do. And Senator Drilon was absolutely correct. It was during his term, and when the Senator Drilon was Senate President, when they were able to successfully launch the One Negros Island region. And we were very proud of that. We were happy to be together with our brothers in Dumaguete and Negros Oriental to have one island region, because we were jealous of Iloilo region. Iloilo region and Panay was getting very developed, of course, under the leadership of Senator Drilon. Sabi namin, Negros naman. Pero unfortunately, you're correct. Hopefully one day, we can realize that dream again of having a one Negros region and develop that beautiful island of Negros provinces. So with that, Mr. President, may I move that we adopt proposed Senate Resolution number 544 of making all our members of the Senate co-author and co-sponsor, Mr. President.
Thank you for that. For the major part of his political career, Governor Marañon was an NPC member.
That's correct. He was a very proud Nationalist People's Coalition member. That's correct, Mr. President.
Anyway, any objection? Hearing none, PS Resolution 544 is hereby adopted.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I had spoken to Senator Pia Cayetano just before I sponsored the resolution, and she asked a bit of time to be able to collate all the amendments, unless she's already ready and can go online. But I still. You need more time,
Mr. President. No, I'll go down now. I'm ready with one batch. There's probably 5 batches. I'm ready with one batch now. So I'll go down. I'll be down in 5 minutes.
So maybe we can.
Yeah, it's up to you, but we can go down.
We can have the additional reference of business.
Okay, Mr. President, that's good, Mr. President. I move for the additional reference of business.
All right, the Secretary will proceed with the additional reference of business.
Additional reference of business, message of the President of the Philippines, letter of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte dated 9 October 2020, certifying to the necessity of the immediate enactment of House Number 7727, entitled An Act Appropriating Funds for the Operation of the Government of the Republic of the Philippines from January 1 to December 31, 2021, and for other purposes, in order to address the need to maintain continuous government operations following the end of the current fiscal year, strengthen efforts to respond more effectively to the COVID-19 pandemic, and support initiatives towards national economic recovery.
Referred to the Committee on Rules.
Bill on first reading, Senate number 1885, entitled An Act Establishing a Result-Based National Evaluation Policy, RBNEP, introduced by Senator Marcos.
Referred to the Committees on Economic Affairs and Finance. Majority Leader, we can perhaps take a short
Yes, Mr.
break.
President. Maybe we have a bicameral committee report if our dear colleague Senator
All right.
Villar is ready, sir. We
Sure.
can already sponsor the bicameral, which is perfect. It's perfect timing, Mr. President, because the BICAM committee report is about organic agriculture. So it is timely that we ratify this on the eve of ratification as well of the resolution of Governor Marañon. So, Mr. President, if our dear colleague, she stood up, Mr. President. Oh, there she's back. Mr. President, we are in receipt of the bicameral conference committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 1318 and House Bill number 6878. This is the Organic Agriculture Act, Mr. President. With the permission of the body, may we recognize our distinguished chairman of the Senate panel, no other than Senator Cynthia Villar, to give us the highlights of the bicameral committee report, Mr. President.
Senator Cynthia Villar is recognized.
Mr. President, on behalf of the Senate panel to the Bicameral Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill 1318 and House Bill number 6878, or the amendments to the Agriculture Organic Act of 2010, I am pleased to report on the successful outcome of the bicameral conference. The body decided to use the Senate version as the working draft of the discussion. Mr. President, may I move that the rest of my report as contained in the BICAM document on the joint explanation be read into the record.
All right. Hearing no objection, it is so recorded.
Thank you,
I
Mr.
move,
President.
Mr.
Oh, sorry.
I move, Mr. President, that the result of the bicameral conference be ratified by this body.
What does this
Mr. President?
majority need to say?
Yes, Mr. President, I was about to do the same. I was also going to move, Mr. President. I move that we approve and ratify the bicameral conference committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 1318 and House Bill number 6878, and let the text of the joint explanation be inserted into the records of this chamber.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The bicameral conference committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill 1318 and House Bill 6878 is hereby adopted and ratified.
Congratulations,
That's all,
are
Mr.
in order.
President. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, ma'am. Congratulations.
To all of us.
Sige, ma'am. If Senator Cayetano is on the floor, Mr. President, we can resume consideration of her measure, or
She is arriving. She is her staff.
if it's all right with the body, maybe we can tackle the chalk allowance of our dear colleague Senator Bong Revilla. Mr. President, I believe there's just going to be a short interpellation by, I'm not sure, mahaba ba, Senator Jolon, Mr. President, or?
Yeah. No, it's very short. No, in fact, I have discussed the matter, my concerns with Senator Revilla, and we agreed that he can handle it in the period of amendments.
Okay, with that, Mr. President, with the permission of the body, this will be I believe it will be quick. I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 1092 under committee report number 14. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure is in order.
May we recognize the sponsor, Senator Ramon Bong Revilla, and to interpolate our distinguished Minority Floor Leader, Senator Franklin M. Drilon.
Yes,
Senator
Mr.
Bong Revilla is recognized, the sponsor, and the Senator Franklin Drilon, Minority Leader, is recognized.
Thank you
Mr.
very much.
Mr. President,
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
before the interpolation, it's okay. It's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Would we recognize the need of our teachers to have this allowance precisely because of the changes in the nature of their functions as a result of the pandemic. They may need more funds than the 5,000 being proposed by the good sponsor, but given the reality that we face today, with tax collections being down and down the horizon, we are looking at the implementation of the Mandanas decision, which will limit the fiscal space that you have in the national government. So would the good sponsor consider spreading out the proposed increase beyond 5,000 to say 2023 after the Mandanas decision, because the Mandanas decision will have to be implemented on 2022, so that if we can have this additional increase on 2023 or 2020 and 2024, the national coffers could probably bear the additional cost. That's our submission to the good sponsor.
Yes, Mr. President, I agree with what Senate Minority Leader has said. You know, I echo his concern. We cannot afford a drastic increase in the cash allowance, even as 3,000 or 5,000 increase. So ang pwede lang po talaga is about 1.5, and then i-ano po natin is going to be progressive. In fact, ang proposal po is to increase the cash allowance to 5,000 pesos starting next year from 2020 to 2021 to 2022 and until 2022 to 2023 for two school years, 5,000 pesos ang cash allowance. But come school year to 2023 to 2024, magiging 7.5 po ang cash allowance. So in short, dagdag ng 2.5. Pagdating naman po ng 2024 to 2025, then 10,000 po ang ating cash allowance ng additional dagdag ulit ng 2.5. So with the approval of our
we have no problems with that, Mr. President. I think it takes into account the fiscal burden that our budget faces in the next 2 years, and pacing the increase in the allowance to 2023, when it will be increased by 2,005 to make 7,005, and another 2,005 effective January 1, or I don't know what date the sponsor is in mind. We would endorse that and join the sponsor in proposing that rate of cash allowance for teachers.
I agree with you, Minority Floor Leader.
Thank you. We have no more questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to our Minority Floor Leader. With that, we move to close the period of. Mr.
Senator
President,
Pia
yes, yes.
Senator Pia Cayetano is recognized.
Since we're already on the topic, I might as well weigh in since I'm handling the budget of the Committee on Education. Was there a change with the permission of the sponsor, the good sponsor from Cavite? May I just ask some clarification?
Yes.
Senator Revilla.
I think it's mute.
Yes. Go ahead.
Was there a change in the numbers? Because from what I recall, one of the clarifications being made when it was first sponsored was whether the amount, if I'm not mistaken, was 5,000, was that in addition to or total? Because there was already a current amount being received? 3.5 ba? So parang additional of 1.5 lang? Do I remember
That's
correctly?
correct. That's correct. 1,500 in addition.
So now, may nagbago? Kasi meron ka ngayon tiers per year?
Wala po, wala. For 2 years, it's going to be 5,000.
Total.
As I mentioned, for yung 2021 to 2022 and until 2022 to 2023, 5,000 total.
All in, all in.
Additional
Okay.
1,500.
Okay. Sorry to
Yes.
have to repeat, but I was not really paying attention because I'm preparing for the next bill. But I heard it,
Budget.
and so I wanted to weigh in because obviously we want to support it, and I wanted to be sure of the amount so that we
Yes,
can
that's
take a
correct.
look at it in the budget. And if it was a bigger amount, might be a problem. But for that amount, we'll do our best to put it already in the budget, Mr. President. Thank you. That's all.
That's correct.
But
Thank you very much,
Senator Cayetano may wish to know that effective 2024, the cash allowance will be increased by 2.5. Oh, effective January 2023, it will be 7,005, and 2024 it will be 10,000.
Well, on that note, thank you so much, Minority Floor Leader, for that correction. That's what I thought I heard just now. That might, I am not against it, okay? I'd like to put on record that I believe I was able to submit a committee report when I was still the chair on the Committee on Education in my last few years, in my last year here, supporting a 10,000 peso across the board allowance for teachers because at that time, it was deemed, it was more of majority decision of all the stakeholders that was the easiest way to augment the salary of teachers. This one, I assumed it to be just allowance, special allowance for supplies, right? So that might be a bit of a problem. I just need to be totally candid and transparent that if you look at the budget of DepEd, there is so much that needs to be purchased. So much from classrooms to tables and chairs, computer equipment, electricity, bathrooms, so on and so forth. I am of the personal belief that we should spread it out. No, nothing should be left behind. But we need to know that if you put that in there, then do we intend to fund that as planned? Because there will be great needs in the years to come, including training of teachers for this shift in our type of education. Even though this is in the time of COVID, but around the world, there's a lot of training going on to foresee future situations where teachers have to have that ability to quickly change their delivery of education. So just something I'd like the gentleman to ponder on. I will not get in the way. I will not oppose, but it's something that needs to be considered because if you take a while and look at the budget of DepEd, I can show you the wish list. I don't have it with me now. I'll send it tomorrow. The wish list is long and they have so many essentials that are even in the unprogrammed fund for the information of all. That's all, Mr. President. Thank you.
Yes, I take note of that, of your concern, Senator Pia, and kaya nga po progressive yung ating increase. We cannot afford one-time, big-time na bigay natin sa kanila. So, thank you very much, Senator Pia and Senator Drilon.
With that, Mr. President, we move to close the period of interpellation on Senate Bill number 1092, Mr. President.
Any objection?
No.
Chair is done. Period of interpellation is closed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the gentleman be ready to take up the amendment, or shall we do it?
Yes,
are you ready?
I'm ready.
So
Okay.
may we proceed, Mr. President? I move to open the period of amendments and allow the committee amendments.
Any objection? Hearing none, period of amendments open.
Great. Thank you, Mr. President. On page 1, line 7, replace the phrase chalks, erasers, forms, and other classroom with the word teaching. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Second amendment, Mr. President. On page 1, line 7, after the word materials, insert a comma and the phrase tangible or intangible for the implementation or conduct of various learning delivery modalities, LDMS, close and parentheses. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hereby, yes. Hearing none, adopted.
Third amendment, on page 1, line 8, delete the phrase per school year is, and in lieu thereof, insert the following phrase. For the school year 2021 to 2022 and 2022 to 2023, 7,500 pesos per teacher for the school year
Inwards and figures. Good, good.
2023 to 2024, and 10,000 pesos in numbers per teacher for the school year 2024, 2022, 2025, and thereafter are. I so move.
And thereafter is hereby authorized.
That's correct,
All right,
Mr. President.
subject to style. Any objection?
Subject to
Hearing
style.
none, adopted.
Section 3 of the bill will now read as follows. Section 3, teaching supplies allowance. A teaching supplies allowance for the purchase of teaching supplies and materials, tangible or intangible, for the implementation or conduct of various learning delivery modalities, LDMS, close and parentheses, in the amount of 5,000 pesos per teacher for the school year 2021 to 2022 and 2022 to 2023. 7,500 pesos and 7,500 pesos in numbers per teacher for the school year 2023-2024, and 10,000 pesos in numbers per teacher for the school year 2024 to 2025, and thereafter are hereby authorized. Another amendment, Mr. President.
Yes.
On page 2, delete the entire section 5 on funding from line 1 to line 9 and replace it with the following. Section 5 funding, the amount necessary, the grant of teaching supplies allowance per teacher per school year authorized under this act shall be charged against the appropriations of the Department of Education, DepEd, close and parentheses, under the General Appropriations Act, GAA, close and parentheses. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On page 2, line 12, replace the term classroom supplies with teaching supplies and materials. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On page 1, line 2, replace the year 2019 with 2020, such that the short title of the bill will read as Teaching Supplies Allowance Act of 2020. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Senator Ralph Recto is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the gentleman be willing to accept one amendment from the principal author of this measure?
Yes, Mr. Senator, our Senate Pro Tempore.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sponsor. Mr. Sponsor, my amendment, just one amendment on page 1, line 9. After the word authorize, insert the phrase, provided that this allowance shall be exempt from income tax.
I accept, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted. The minority leader is recognized.
Yes, Mr. President, we propose an amendment on page 1, line 11, to delete the words, quote, limited to teachers who are engaged in actual classroom teaching in public basic education, close quote, and replace that phrase with the following. Cover teachers who are engaged in teaching public basic education, comma, consistent with the learning modalities recognized by the Department of Education. End of amendment. We submit, Mr. President.
What
I
does the
accept,
sponsor
Mr.
say?
President.
Accepted.
I accept, Mr. President.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Yeah. No more amendment for our part.
Minority leader.
Thank you, Minority Clerk.
Thank you. With that, Mr. President, I move to close the period of amendments.
Any objection? Hearing none, period of amendments closed.
With that, Mr. President, I move to approve on second reading Senate Bill number 1092 under Committee Report number 14. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, Senate Bill 1092 is hereby or is approved on second reading.
Mr. President, I move to suspend consideration of the same.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
And congratulations to our dear colleague, Senator Revilla.
Senator Recto and Senator
And Senator Recto, yes, and Senator Drilon as well for giving the pertinent amendments. Thank you.
I understand the principal author is the President Pro Tem.
Yes, that's correct.
All right.
Who will be up next in the amendments, the amendments part? Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 1357 under Committee Report number 50.
Any objection? Hearing none. Consideration is in order.
Mr. President, I move to recognize our distinguished colleague, Senator Pia S. Cayetano, the chairperson of the Committee on Ways and Means, and to propose amendments on my list is depends on who the sponsor would want to propose. Yes, Mr. President.
I will start. I'll be the one first to read some proposed amendments coming from myself and from other senators who have asked me to just read it. Very simple amendments, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Are we not following the proposal yesterday that we do this page by page?
Yes.
What is the pleasure of the body?
Mr. President, this is page by page, but unfortunately, it's page by page per batch because as they come in, today, Mr. President, I received new amendments from 2 senators. So there's no way I can include that in what I'm reporting out now. So that's how I have to deal with it. It's page by batch. I'm sorry for that, but that's the best I have.
Nothing.
The minority leader was raising his
Well, I thought that we agreed that the system proposed today is that we do it page by page so that we don't keep on coming back and forth. Of course, if that is if the sponsor says she would prefer by batch, I do not know what that batch is, that batch per senator, but then we keep on going back and forth. That's the call of the sponsor. I went along and supported the proposal of the Senate President that we do it page by page so that the senator who has an amendment on a particular page will request to be recognized and submit amendments. But I submit to the discretion of the Senate President, the Majority Leader, and the sponsor.
Mr. President, I can weigh in on that. We have a choice. I can give you, Mr. President, page by page with what I have.
Yeah.
But for those who just submitted, if you want that to be included, then I will have to pause, and I probably will have to do it tomorrow because, as I said, 2 people just gave me their amendments today. So how would I incorporate that now?
The best thing to do actually there is that for them to propose their amendment.
I'm not
While
prepared.
we're doing it.
Yes, I take note of that, Mr. President, but I'm not prepared to do that because
You're not prepared to accept.
I'm not prepared to accept because, as you know, Mr. President, we've had discussions. This is fairly technical, and I owe it to DOF to be able to show it to them. So that's all I ask for, that time to be able to show it to them, for them to weigh in on it, no? It's a system that I've already put into place. I gave a deadline for the submission. Di naman ako namimilit. I am not saying that you cannot submit beyond the deadline. Nothing like that. But it prevents me from being as efficient as I'd like to be. So on that note, what I have here are amendments. They're fairly simple. I leave it to the body. If you want me to do page by page, then we will suspend. I will try to put this together, but there is no way that I can include Senator Rectos, Senator Dilons, and Senator Marcos. In that case, maybe I can try to do it tomorrow.
No, Senator Drilon's amendments, I understand. I have a copy. Will be proposed on the floor.
Yes, and that's fine with me, but I'm not ready for his amendments yet. He was gracious enough to give me a copy, and I am grateful for that. But I would also like time to read it. I just saw it a while ago. I hope you will understand it is technical. Instead of digesting it on the floor, I would like to have a few minutes to read it. So I was either going to ask for some time later on, and hanggat kaya ko, I will make myself available. And that's why yung inuuna ko is yung wala hong mga tanong. At saka yung mga maaga nag-submit. In fact,
Minority Leader.
yung mga maaga hong nag-submit, beyond the deadline din po yun. Pero I accept. But this is the system that works for your representation. And by all means, Mr. President, I do not want to cause more confusion. For the big issues, we will go slowly because I know there are 2 or 3 or maybe even more senators who want to weigh in on those issues. It's not about making it confusion. Believe me, I'm the first person who wants it to be orderly. It's just that a lot of them were just submitted today. So what can I do?
So, Majority Leader, Minority Leader, and the President Pro Tem, we want to hear your proposals.
Well, yes, Mr. President, I am one of those who submitted, who would have proposed amendments on the floor, but for the convenience of the Senate President, the Majority Leader, and the sponsor, I submitted a written amendment, which I would have read on the floor. We received the revised copy of the bill at about 12:30 this afternoon, on which basis we propose our amendment. I am amenable to any system that the majority will decide. If the good sponsor would want to review the amendments that we have proposed, it is with her, and we have no problems with proposing it in the floor tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. President.
What about the President Pro Tem? Maybe here is.
Actually, Mr. President, we spoke earlier. We've been in touch. We started our discussions last night, and some of the points I've already been working with DOF for clearance, for wording, for compromise. So we're not done yet, but as I mentioned to you, we're moving forward very well, as far as I know, and he can confirm that.
Yes, Mr. President. Last night we did meet and we had an hour and a half maybe discussing finer points of the measure. These are the big issues as well of the measure. And earlier this afternoon, I spoke to the chairman, the sponsor of this committee, committee report, and we've agreed that to give time for the DOF to reply on some of the possible compromises that we have suggested, Mr. President. And I have no objection if the sponsor were to read and to accept some of the amendments made by our colleagues, understanding that many of them are simple amendments and not really at the heart of the picture insofar as the rationalization is concerned, as an example, among others, Mr. President.
What does the Majority Leader say before we come up with a ruling?
Well, Mr. President, to push forward with the proceedings, I will go with the suggestion of the sponsor if she wants to tackle the amendments of a few of our colleagues, I believe it's amendments of Senator Villanueva, Senator Angara, we can proceed, and then after which we take up the other amendments that are available for floor deliberations, President, just so that we can move forward.
Yeah.
All right, that means
Mr. President, yeah, I'm sorry.
Senator
Mr. President, yeah. Mr. President,
Go ahead.
yes, thank you, Mr. President. I have no objection to the suggestion of the majority leader, but may I further suggest that when the sponsor is through with their amendments coming from our colleagues, maybe we can begin, as suggested also by the minority leader, that starting tomorrow, we can go page by page.
Very good. That was I was trying to collate your thoughts. You know, the minority leader, the majority leader, the president pro tem, and the suggestion of the sponsor. The ideal thing to do now, or procedure to do now, would be to allow the sponsor to read into the records or move for the adoption of the different amendments that she already has in her possession and have no problem as far as her committee is concerned. And therefore, the Drelon amendments, the Recto amendments, and Marcos or any other member who have further amendments will be basing their amendments on a clean copy tomorrow. If that is fine with you, that is what we will do. All right? Senator Gordon is recognized. You're on mute, Senator Gordon.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Apologies, sir. I just want to state for the record that my amendments are similar to those of Senator Dulon and Senator Recto. We had brief discussions on this matter to find out where we stand. And I think that there are slight differences, although they're very different. I just want to make it a record that if that is the case, then tomorrow it shall be for us to make the amendments. Is that
Right.
am I correct in that understanding, sir?
Yes, we will do it page by page tomorrow. Page 1, page 2, page 3, whoever has amendments. After the clean copy is distributed in the morning, after tonight.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very
Right?
much. Thank you,
All
sir.
right, if there's no objection, the chairperson of the Committee on Ways and Means is recognized for further amendments, and his amendments will be based on the amended copy as of October 12, 2020. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will proceed. Mr. President, on page 12A,
12A.
line 43.
Hmm?
This is actually an amendment to the amendment made yesterday. Delete the word gainful and replace it with full and decent.
Full and
Decent.
decent?
Yes, decente, decent. That comes from Dole, Mr. President, amending the proposal of Senator
Full
Pimenta.
and decent employment.
Yes.
You'll have to bear with us sometimes because the mask
Yes, of course, of
has
course.
a different sound.
Yes,
I thought you said Vicente.
Ano, when you said what is that, then I said Vicente. I repeated it by saying it in Filipino. Please feel free to let me know.
No, you see, you didn't hear me. I said Vicente.
Ah, Vicente, I did not hear you.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none. Adopted. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. On page 30,
Sorry?
30.
30, line 20, sorry, line, wait, I think somebody's mic is on, so it's
13
getting...
or 30?
Mr. President, may I just ask, turn off the mics because there's feedback and I think Senator Gilon I couldn't hear also. Okay, let me repeat. On page 30, 30,
0.
line 37.
Mhm.
So page 30, line 37, after the word employment,
Mhm.
insert the phrase, comma, especially towards less developed areas.
Semicolon.
Yes, there is a semicolon there, Mr. President.
Yeah, after,
Yes.
All right.
We submit from Senator Pangilinan.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Thank you. Page 32. Lines
32.
3 to 4.
32. All right.
Delete the phrase, comma, such as creation of high-skilled, and replace it with for creating high value. Submitted by Senator Ontiveros.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On page 32, line 5, after the word foreign, insert the phrase and domestic. Submitted by Senator Hontiveros.
Foreign and domestic capital investment. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. On page 32, line 6, after the word project, insert the phrase subject to maximum incentive levels recommended by the FIRB. Submitted by Senator Hontiveros.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this Mr. President, a minute suspension.
Session suspended.
Yes, Majority Floor Leader, I am ready to accept the amendments by Senator Villanueva and Angara.
Yes, Senator Villanueva was called first, so Senator Villanueva, Mr. President, may be recognized.
Senator Villanueva.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Majority Floor Leader. At the onset, may I just put on record our sincerest thanks to our distinguished colleague, the sponsor of the measure, for accepting almost all of our amendments. Especially, let me point out the expansion of tax deductibility on training expense, specifically the inclusion of enterprise-based trainings. I really appreciate it, Mr. President. This will help address job skills mismatch and improve employability of our graduates. May I go to page 21, distinguished colleague? Page 21, line 32, insert a new paragraph, provided that registered business enterprises, RBEs, whose performance commitments include job generation shall maintain their employment levels to the extent practicable, and in the case of reduced employment, the RBEs must submit to their respective IPAs and the FIRB their jurisdiction on the same. I'd like to point out, Mr. President, that during the interpellation of this representation, our distinguished colleague, the sponsor, Senator Pia, shared that safeguards against retrenchment or mass layoffs may not be fully applicable to all registered business enterprises, as there would be RBEs whose performance commitment is not on employment, maybe introducing new technology. Hence, Mr. President, we propose putting these safeguards against retrenchment on RBEs whose commitment is job generation to begin with. Just to put that on record, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President, we accept that. We are happy to support this. I think there was just a wrong reading of the word justification in the last line. And the FIRB, their justification on the same.
Yes,
Just
yes,
to
sorry.
clarify.
Their justification on the same. Yes, thank you, Mr. President.
We accept, Mr. President.
Thank you, distinguished colleague.
Mr. President, can I ask a question? Yes, for clarification. The proposed amendment uses the word retrenchment. Retrenchment is technically a situation where the RBE, or the registered business enterprise, would be suffering losses. And is it the intention of the proponent that retrenchment as a result will not be allowed in case the RBEs are receiving incentives?
No, Mr. President.
May I clarify? The actual wording we accepted is reduced employment, not retrenchment. Reduced employment.
Whether reduced employment, that's the same as retrenchment. Retrenchment is the term used in order that when we the employment relation is terminated because of losses, as
Yes, and
distinguished from redundancy, where the employment is terminated because of labor-saving devices.
Yes, there is a provision,
in our-
Mr. President,
Go ahead.
distinguished Minority Floor Leader, that the RBEs must submit to their respective IPAs and FIRB their justification, just to justify, Mr. President, especially after getting this fiscal incentive.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to spread into the record as a question. Very simply, where the RBEs or where an RBE is suffering from losses, is his right to retrench suspended or withdrawn from him? In other words, would retrenchment as a result of losses not be available to the RBE?
It will still be available as far as I'm concerned. The intention merely, Mr. President, distinguished colleague, is just to make sure that the RBEs stay true to their commitment of job generation when they applied for this incentive, Mr. President.
Yes, I'm sorry, my colleague from Bulacan. I hope I can get a direct answer. I am not opposed to this. If this is the policy, we must be conscious of what the policy is. Do I understand the proposal to say that insofar as the RBs, which has a specific commitment on the number of employees or workers, they cannot undertake retrenchment, which is the result of losses incurred?
May I, Mr. President, with the
Senator
permission of
Cayetano.
the sponsor, because I'm accepting it based also on my understanding. So the minority floor leader can tell me if he agrees with my understanding or if there is some confusion. So with the permission of the gentleman,
Please.
first of all, the phrase we use is reduced employment because we don't want to distinguish whether it's retrenchment or redundancy. Whatever the reason is, the point is, if they committed to, let's say, 1,000 employees, and then suddenly they have less, it is their job to submit the justification. And that will now be assessed. It is as simple as that. It will now be assessed. So it addresses the concern of the sponsor that if there is no basis, nagtitipid lang sila, and yet they promise, then there's reason to look into it. You know, did they renege on a commitment? Now, if there is basis, like His Honor, the minority floor leader says, that there is a valid case of retrenchment, then it probably would be looked on by the IPA without any they would look at it and just note that. So that is really the intention, Mr. President, that they cannot just push through with this reduction of the number of employees, because that was the main commitment they made, that they must at the very least submit. So it can be assessed, because that is the job of the IPA, to assess if they are fulfilling their commitments.
Yeah, okay. As we said, we're just trying to spread these explanations on the record. In other words, it is the intention of the proponent of the amendment and accepted by the sponsor that for those registered business enterprises with employment level commitments, they cannot reduce the personnel without clearance of the FIRB. A clearance requirement is necessary, in other words.
Actually, Mr. President, we worked with the sponsor on the wording of this, and it's really not pre-clearance. In fact, we're quite liberal, and I'm grateful that the sponsor agreed. It's actually just a justification. It's not even a pre-clearance because this representation is conscious of the fact that we don't want the investors to feel that their managerial prerogatives are being interfered with. So they just have to justify. They make a commitment, that's their contract. If something changes, then they justify. And the IPA can deal with it as necessary.
Yes, a justification is also a clearance, only that it is done once the decision has been made. In other words, the reduction in personnel can be set aside by the FIRB if the employer cannot provide any justification. Is that how I understand it?
May I just interject, Mr. President, and allow me to again spread into the records. The provision only covers RBEs, Mr. President, distinguished colleague. RBEs whose commitment is job generation to begin with. So it's not covering all RBEs. And we believe in employment is worth looking into if the RBE is promised to begin with is job generation. The clarification that we're trying to put here, Mr. President, is that this particular provision does not provide a blanket policy to disallow reduction of workers, Mr. President.
Yeah, I fully understand that. I am just spreading into the record that the RBE, whose commitment is job generation, must justify any reduction in personnel. And if they cannot be justified, the reduction in personnel will not be allowed. Is that correct, Mr. Sponsor?
Well, actually, they would have already done it. So they may be penalized, Mr. President. Depends on the terms of their contract. They could possibly be penalized because if the condition for allowing them to be a registered enterprise with incentives is not met, then those are grounds for suspension, cancellation. I don't know the details. That's subject to their contract. But that is it in a nutshell, Mr. President.
And if I may add, Mr. President, if I also may add, no, even without this amendment, the FIRB has the right to look into the performance of RBEs with regard to their commitment and based on the Mr. President, on the plan of action, Mr. President.
Yeah. Well, because this, we must clarify this because there is a general law today. Our labor code allows reduction of personnel in case of retrenchment, which means reduction of personnel because of losses, or a reduction of personnel because of redundancy, which can arise from a reorganization or adoption of labor-saving devices. I want to put the intention into the record as to whether or not an RBE, which was given the incentive on a commitment on a reduced on commitment on a specific number of jobs to be generated, would have to secure, number one, would have to secure the clearance or could be questioned before the FIRB for a reduction of personnel regardless of the reason. I just want to make our intention clear on the record. In other words, just to push it further, if the commitment, say, is to have 1,000 employees or workers, an incentive was given. After some period, nalugi po because of worldwide issues or circumstances, and would now reduce its workforce by 500. May we know what is the process that must be followed by the RBE?
Mr. President, before I respond to that question, let me put this in context. My initial discussion with the sponsor is, even without this amendment, that is the job of the FIRB and the IPA to ensure that the performance commitments are complied with. Precisely why we are putting up an FIRB is because we want there to be accountability among the registered enterprises. His Honor, as we all know, is very protective of the labor sector. And I honor that and appreciate that. And so when His Honor wanted firmer language to ensure that employees would not just be terminated, we had the lengthy discussions on this, and this is the provision we came out. So that is the context, Mr. President. There is no intention to prevent management from doing what they need to do to survive. And that is why FIRB wants to be there, because if the IPA wants to weigh in with them on the justifications, then they can do that. Really, what we want to do is that these companies remain committed to their, they call it commitment, performance commitment. We want them to take that seriously, Mr. President. So if they commit to job generation, and then there is a worldwide slowdown in the economy or whatever, I would believe, I cannot answer for the IPA, but I would believe that this would be taken into consideration in the determination if there is a failure to perform the commitment. Again, with or without this provision, I believe that that would be there. But I do support His Honor Senator Joel's desire to make this very clear. But that is all it is intended to be, to confirm that there is that, to clarify that that commitment is serious.
Yeah.
Mr.
I thought
President.
ask these questions because to me the intention is not clear. Let's go on a specific example. A call center. We all know that the call center is an activity which is contracted out by the principal. Let's say that on the basis of the business plan, an RBE would have 1,000 worker employees or call center agents based on five, how do you call that? 5 companies who would engage their services. So they commit to hire 1,000 workers. The following year, one of the 5 would pull out from the service center as an extra client, and therefore there is now a need, insofar as the employer is concerned, to reduce the number of workers because the clients were reduced from 5 to 4. May I know if that situation would justify a reduction in personnel?
Mr. President, I believe that for practical purposes, if they lost a client, all they have to do is report to the IPA and inform them that they lost a client. And from there, I believe the IPA will ask them, do you intend to get another client? And from there, they can determine. I cannot prejudge, Mr. President, what their decision will be. But
No, but
I'm sure they
but
can make those decisions because they would want to keep that client, Mr. President. It's not my job to tell them how to handle it, but precisely we're telling the IPA here that
yes,
you must receive a justification
it's
and
not
you
your
must
job,
make.
Mr. Madam Sponsor, but you're imposing rules which may not be realistic. That is why I'm asking all these questions. Because in that specific example, can we have an answer if the commitment for 1,000 workers is based on commitments by contractual commitments by 5 companies, and after a year or two, one company out of that 5 withdraws its contract from the call center? Would the RBE now be allowed to retrench or to reduce its manpower to correspond to its business?
Sorry, was what happened was the worldwide situation, worldwide
No. Madam Sponsor,
the client, the loss of the client. I'm just asking
I
because I
have
was
20 po.
verifying.
5 clients. I have 5 clients. I commit to
Yes,
hire
I responded to
1,000
that,
call
Your
center.
Honor.
Yes. 5 clients. I commit to hire 1,000 call center agents. All right. After 2 or 3 years, one of my clients left. I have only 4 left. Am I allowed to reduce my workforce, say to 800 on just a straight computation for purposes of example? My commitment is 1,000. Yes, I was committed with 1,000. I have 5 clients. After 1 year, one of my clients fired me as a call center agent company. Am I allowed to retrench or reduce my manpower from 1,000 to say 800?
Mr. President, I believe that that is a very acceptable and reasonable basis for the retrenchment. So if I were the IPA, I believe that they would not act on that unfavorably. Of course, if there are strong commitments and other companies similarly situated are able to comply, then they probably would have discussions and say, okay, you have 6 months, 1 year, 2 years to comply, because they would also have to weigh other factors, no? If internationally there's a slowdown in availment of foreign labor for them or like coming here, then I would expect that IPAs and FIRB would recalibrate the requirements. They could always negotiate also na we will maybe across the board be reducing this amount because it's unreasonable. Under the circumstances, there are no jobs available. I believe that that is a reasonable exercise of their powers, Mr. President, and responsible.
Yes, Mr. President. And is that situation, is that leeway, is that discretion found in the proposed amendment?
Mr. President, when we wrote this, when we drafted this bill, the objective here is to provide the general framework. The actual rules governing the IPEs are not contained in this measure, Mr. President.
Yes.
I believe the responses that I gave and His Honor's very specific questions would also be serve as guidance to the implementers as to the legislative intention. I believe that we have sufficiently provided them with that. But if His Honor would like to make some amendments, as I have always said, we are always open, Mr. President.
Now, next question, Mr. President. Who has jurisdiction to determine whether the reduction in personnel was valid or invalid for IPEs?
Mr. President, DOLE is still the government agencies that monitors and implements compliance with labor laws, Mr. President.
So, what is the role of the IPA in that particular case, or the FIRB? You just mentioned in response to my previous queries that my impression is the FIRB would inquire
Yes.
the validity of the reduction, and if they find it invalid, is it within their authority to order a reinstatement?
Mr. President, the role of FIRB, as I mentioned, is to ensure, to monitor and to ensure compliance of the investors. And so this requirement to submit is for the IPA to be able to exercise that function that we have given them, to monitor the compliance with the performance commitments that they have made. That is their function, Mr. President. As to compliance with the actual labor law, that is the DOLE, Mr. President.
Yes. So can we spread into the record the answer to the question we raised? If there is a question as to the validity of the reduction of personnel, for whatever reason, what is the role of the National Labor Relations Commission, whose jurisdiction is over employer-employee relations, and the FIRB, whose role is to monitor compliance with the commitments of the RBE as a result of incentives granted to them?
Mr. President, as I mentioned, their jurisdiction, their functions are very clear. DOLE has the jurisdiction and the power and the duty to ensure the implementation of labor laws.
Okay, let's stop there,
FIRB,
ma'am, if you don't mind. Can the NLRC order the reinstatement of these retrenched employees?
whatever powers the NLRC has, those powers remain. The FIRB does not interfere with the powers of government agencies to implement their to implement the law, which is within their jurisdiction, Mr. President.
Yes, that's what we're trying to clarify for the record.
Yes, we're
That
happy to clarify.
that the IPA, notwithstanding their finding that the RBE violated its commitments on level of employment, cannot order the reinstatement of these workers, or can they?
Mr. President, for clarification, for them to order reinstatement, that means there was a case filed. So I'm
Yes.
assuming the employees filed the case, and therefore the decision of that case will be made by the NLRC, not the FIRB. So FIRB has no role there, Mr. President.
No, Mr. President, the employees would go to the FIRB and assert that the company and the employer violated their commitments on employment levels, which was the condition for the grant of the incentives. The employees now will assert that the firm did not comply with its commitments. Question: can the FIRB or the IPA order the reinstatement of this personnel because the RBE did not fulfill its commitment on employment levels, which is the condition for the grant of the incentives?
Mr. President, with all due respect, we believe we answered that question already. It is the DOLE who is charged with implementation. If a case will be filed by the employees with NLRC, it is the NLRC who will act upon that case and make the decision. FIRB's jurisdiction is simply to determine if the companies are complying with their performance commitment, Mr. President.
So the FIRB cannot issue a reinstatement even if the RBE violated its commitment. Just want to make that a record.
No, Mr. President.
No,
That is,
yeah.
I hope I was able to clarify that is not within their power.
I just want to make that a record so that when these questions arise on the jurisdiction, they can rely on our debates and be guided by the jurisdiction of each government, of the government agencies involved.
Yes, Mr. President, I thank His Honor for spreading it into the record, and I hope I've answered his concerns clearly so that our implementing agencies would be properly guided.
Thank you much, Mr. President, if that is the case. I just wanted to spread that into the record, and so that the even if the IPA has found the RBE to have violated its commitment on employment levels, the IPA cannot order the reinstatement of these employees
Yes.
whose employment was terminated. I just wanted to clarify that, and that's on the record, for purposes of defining clearly the jurisdictions of our different agencies. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
President. Thank you,
President.
Minority Leader. If I may just give one more point, Mr. President, just to spread also into the records that we are not in any way amending the labor code with this provision. What we simply want, Mr. President, is for the FIRB to have information on job generation in firms that receive incentives. After all, they have the power with regard to assessing the grant of incentives. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. President.
Thank you.
Yes, Senator
Mr.
Ontiveros,
President.
with the permission of the two senators. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to the good sponsor and to Senator Joel. I'd also just like to make of record that I support the spirit of the proposed amendment of Senator Joel, given his protection for the labor sector as cited by the sponsor. Although my own proposed amendment regarding labor conditionality has to do with core labor standards. Nonetheless, I just wish indeed to make of record my support for the spirit of his proposed amendment, seeing as it will be consistent not only with the new bill that we are working on passing into law, but also the Labor Code of the Philippines. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, a good sponsor, and Senator Joel.
So may we continue? What is the pleasure of the sponsor, Senator Cayetano?
Would be happy to continue, Mr. President. I believe Senator Joel has.
Yeah, did you accept his proposal?
Yes.
already?
Yes, Mr. President, it
All
was
right.
accepted.
There is no objection. Adopted. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, I thank my distinguished colleague for her patience. One last, Mr. President, on page 26, line 2, after the phrase investment promotion agency, insert a new proviso that will read, provided, that the application for tax incentives shall be duly accompanied by a cost-benefit analysis, provided, further, that the FIRB shall prescribe the data requirements for the application of incentives to allow for the calculation of costs and benefits upon application. Thank you, Mr. President.
We accept, Mr. President.
Accepted, subject to style because of the further. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
President.
very much, Mr. President. I'd like to thank my distinguished colleague for accepting our amendments and especially for being passionate also with our advocacy. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Senator Pia. God bless.
Who's next, Your Honor?
I believe Senator Angara, Majority Floor Leader.
Senator Sani Angara is recognized. Period of amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, dear sponsor. I think we gave you copies earlier, so if I may go straight to the amendments with the permission of our chair.
Yes, please.
On page 2, Your Honor, after line 3, to insert a new subsection, letter D, create a more equitable tax incentive system that will allow for inclusive growth and generation of jobs and opportunities in all the regions of the country and ensure access and ease in the grant of these incentives, especially for applicants in least developed areas.
We accept, Mr. President.
Accepted. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Thank you, dear sponsor. On page 12, line 38, after the word devices, after the word devices, comma, to insert the word applications. That is the amendment, dear sponsor.
Applications, what did the sponsor say?
We accept, Mr. President.
Accepted. Any objection? Adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, dear sponsor. Third is on page 15, after line 28, to insert the following subparagraphs. Subparagraph L, which shall read as follows. Subparagraph L, sophisticated refers to the state when a product or service requires a high level of technology, human capital, competencies or know-how, and infrastructure to be produced or offered, semicolon. And letter M, sophistication refers to the level of technology, human capital, competencies, or know-how, and infrastructure required for a product or service to be offered by an economy like that of the Philippines. That is the amendment, Mr. President.
And then relator. What does the sponsor say?
Accept, Mr. President.
Accepted. Any objection? Adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President, dear sponsor. Thank you. On page 16, line 13, after the word courses, to insert the phrase curricula, comma, certifications, or modules. I so move, Mr. President.
We accept.
Sponsor. Adopted. Adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President, dear sponsor. On page 16, line 14H, after the word activity, to insert the phrase or in preparation or enhancing the value chain. I so move, Mr. President.
We accept, Mr. President.
Accepted. Any objection? Adopted.
Thank you again, Mr. President and dear sponsor. On page 24, line 5, after the word activities, colon, to insert the phrase research and development, generation of new knowledge and intellectual property, registered and slash or licensed in the Philippines, commercialization of patents, industrial designs, copyrights, and utility models owned or co-owned by a registered business enterprise. I so move, Mr. President.
We accept, Mr. President.
Accepted. Adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President, dear sponsor. On page 27, line 31, after the word incentives, to insert, for this purpose, the Fiscal Incentives Review Board shall maintain a master list of registered products and services for export or domestic consumption that are entitled to incentives, colon, provided that to facilitate compliance to the foregoing, the DTI or the Department of Industry, in coordination with relevant regulatory bodies, shall cause the registration and reporting by registered business enterprises of the types or services rendered, whether domestically or to foreign clients, types of products manufactured domestically, products imported and sold locally, and products exported. I so move, Mr. President.
We
What does
accept,
it-
Mr.
Accepted.
President.
Any objection? Adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President, Madam Chair, sponsor. The next is on page 28, after line 28, to insert a new subsection M and to re-letter accordingly. To read as follows: M, to adopt policies for the development and expansion of the domestic supply chain in order to reduce dependence on imports, semicolon, promote diversification and sophistication of products produced and services offered, whether exported or consumed locally, semicolon, and cater to local market demand, semicolon. So move, Mr. President.
Sponsor say?
We accept, Mr. President.
Accepted. Any objection? Hearing none. Adopted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. President, on page 30, line 24, after the word jobs, to insert the phrase to grow a local pool of enterprises, particularly MSMEs, that can supply to domestic and global value chains, to increase the sophistication of products and services that are produced and or sourced domestically, to expand domestic supply, and to reduce dependence on imports. So move, Mr. President.
We accept, Mr. President.
Accepted. Hearing no objection. Adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, dear sponsor. On page 31, after line 8, I move to insert a new subparagraph 8 to read as follows. 8. Enhancement of the capabilities of Filipino enterprises and professionals to produce and offer increasingly sophisticated products and services. I so move, Mr. President.
We accept, Mr. President.
Accepted. Hearing no
Thank you,
objection.
Mr.
Adopted.
And may,
Thank you,
may, I
Mr.
just, may I just insert that we renumber succeeding
Yes.
subparagraphs
So
accordingly.
renumbered. All right.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, dear sponsor. Next is on page 32, line 1. I move that after the word code, to insert the phrase or craft the appropriate financial support package. I so move, Mr. President.
We accept, Mr. President.
Accepted. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, dear sponsor. On page 32, line 4, after the word jobs, to insert the phrase building new industries to diversify economic activities. I so move, Mr. President.
We accept, Mr. President.
Does it coincide with your earlier amendment? You amended something in this particular line, 4 and 5.
Mr. President, it's consistent.
Consistent. All right. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your eagle eyes, and thank you, dear sponsor, for accepting. Next is on page 32, line 18. After the word incentive, we move to insert the phrase or financial support. I so move, Mr. President.
Sponsor.
We accept, Mr. President.
Accepted. Objection. Adopted.
Thank you, dear sponsor, Mr. President. On page 32, line 24, after the word approaches, to insert the phrase high level of sophistication. I so move, Mr. President.
We accept, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, dear sponsor. Next is on page 32, line 40. We move that after the word incentive, we insert the phrase or financial support. So move.
We accept, Mr. President.
Accepted. Any objection? Adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, dear sponsor, Madam Chair. On page 32, after line 42, we move to insert a new paragraph which shall read as follows. For this purpose, financial support includes utilization of government resources such as land use, water appropriation, power provision, budgetary support provision under the Annual General Appropriations Act, and the like. I so move, Mr. President.
We accept, Mr. President.
Accepted. No objection. Adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'd like to thank the body for accepting, and we'd like, of course, to thank you, and to most of all, to thank our very hardworking chair for accommodating our amendments. I understand there's still a few that they are studying, so I know I have no amendments for today, without prejudice to any that we have already submitted that the good chair might accept in the coming days, Mr. President.
All right. Thank
Yes,
you.
definitely, Mr. President. I confirm that I think there's not a few. I think there are still a lot of amendments from Senator Angara, and now we are happily studying those amendments. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, dear sponsor. Thank you, dear colleagues.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Like any other colleague would like to propose amendments at this time, Mr. President. Because I know we'd like to ask Senator Recto as well as Senator Julon when they will be proposing their amendments.
Yes, thank you, Majority Leader. As agreed upon earlier, and based on my talks with the sponsor earlier, that we will propose the amendments page by page, line by line, starting tomorrow.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. We will direct the secretary to, if there is no other amendment today, we will direct the secretariat to produce a clean copy for tomorrow. And we will start that will give the sponsor time to study the proposed amendments that you have already submitted that she cannot accept right now, but is asking for time to study it, and that'll be enough time for tomorrow so that we can do it page by page tomorrow as suggested.
Also with Senator Gordon, I believe Senator Gordon had some proposals, Mr. President.
Now?
I'm not sure if Senator Gordon is going to propose it today or tomorrow. But it's all right if it's tomorrow, Mr. President. We can come up with a clean copy first.
Oh, yes. Okay. And the sponsor was asking that if it's possible for our colleagues to submit in advance some of the amendments that they might think would be controversial, so that she can already clear it with her, not only her staff, but also the Department of Finance.
Yes, thank you. Senator Gordon's online. Maybe we could ask also Senator Gordon.
Yes,
Would
I
you
was working on the other amendments, Mr. President, and I thought made it clear that I would go with Senator Drilon, Senator Recto, and other senators who may have similar amendments that we do.
That'll be good.
Because
If
we
you do
share
that,
some basic principles.
page by
and
page
we can
tomorrow,
work
that'll be good.
together and
All right.
fashion out a
Thank
better
you.
bill if that is possible. We may be inappropriately mayabang.
All right. So,
So bukas na po kung pwede.
Okay.
Any other for today? Senator,
Mr. President, may I recognize the Minority Leader.
Next. Senator Drilon, you're on mute.
Mr. President, as you are fully aware, we submitted our proposed amendments on the basis of the October, what's it called? October 12?
October 12, yes.
October 12 version. And we pointed out the line, the page where these amendments are sought to be made. With the amendments that were accepted today and approved, it will be incorporated in a new version, which will be the basis of the debates tomorrow, which means that we have again to redo our proposals because it now would not coincide with the pagination and the line with the revised version.
But the contents will be the same, no? So
yes, the contents of
the sponsor may be able to study these proposed amendments already, but there will be a change in some of the pages and some of the lines.
Yes.
For
Just
tomorrow.
for the record, so that we will not miss it.
Yes, all right. The sponsor is advised that the content will be the same.
Yes, Mr. President, thank
All right.
you.
Okay, anything else, Majority Leader? Then we can.
Well, with that, Mr. President, while we are waiting for the clean copy of the measure, I move to suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 1357. Mr.
All right,
President.
the Secretariat is directed to produce a clean copy at the soonest possible time, be as of October 13, 2020. And if there is no objection, Senate Bill 1357's consideration is suspended.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, with the permission of the body, may I take up the last item on the agenda on the mandatory positions for cooperative development officers, Mr. President. With the permission of the body, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 1855. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Senator Marcos?
Yes, Mr. President, may I interpolate the sponsor?
Yes, Mr. President, I was going to recognize.
Let's, consider it first. Any objection? Hearing none, consideration is in order.
Thank you. With the period of interpellation, Mr. President, if I may be able to sponsor the measure and for Senator Marcos to be recognized as well.
All right. So the sponsor of the measure, the Majority Leader, Senator Juan Miguel Zubiri, is recognized. To continue interpellation, Senator Amy Marcos.
Yes, thank you very much, Senate President and my Majority Leader. Whereas the new bill, the proposed committee report, indicates that the position for Co-op Development Officer is mandatory. In fact, it provides an option: either appoint a full-fledged CDO or merge the position with other existing positions. So it's not, in fact, mandatory, which to a certain degree alarmed our LGUs who can barely afford an increase in their personnel. Would the sponsor be willing to amend this so that it is more precisely indicated about the mandatory versus the optional appointment, Mr. Sponsor?
Yes, actually, it is actually mandatory, but what we try to do is try to also look at the positions, the fiscal positions of a lot of LGUs that have a very little budget, which is like the fourth, fifth, and sixth class municipalities.
That's right.
So what we did is instead of appointing a new officer, we gave them an option where they can actually um, uh, merge an existing position, because some of the LGUs have these business development officers
That's right.
from the DTI. They can, since the cooperative sector is now under the DTI already, we can merge that position with their existing officer if they have under the DTI setup. So, would you like to propose an amendment to make it even more efficient?
Yes, I would like to propose an amendment to to the language used, mandatory position, perhaps a mandatory assignment, because position indicates that they would have a new position, a brand new item, an additional fiscal burden. Yun lang naman, because at the end of the day, it's very clear thereafter that there is the option to simply merge or use another position.
I accept. That's a very good amendment, actually. That would harmonize that provision.
Yes,
Mr.
the
President.
LGUs would be relieved, because then it's very clear that they can assign someone who has another job to do the functions of the cooperative development officer. Secondly,
Yes.
there are also some LGUs saying that there should be an evidence-based determination of the impact of co-ops in the local economy, meaning that once again, they have the option to simply assign one of their existing officers to CDO rather than a brand new item once again.
Yes. So as long as let's look the wording, Mr. President. But in principle, I have no objection to the proposed amendment.
Thank you very much. And we also are aware that the CDAs are already regionalized. So in some areas where the cooperative movement has not taken off, or perhaps they have been replaced by traditional groupings or communal irrigators and so on, perhaps it would be the option also of the local government executive to simply assign one of these heads as the CDO once again. Thank you very much, Mr. Sponsor, and I shall submit the amendment for precision in language and to assuage the concerns of our local government executives, whom, as you know, are already hard put with their COVID expenses to forestall another appointment of a new position. Thank you very much. We welcome and support the development officers for the cooperative movement.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much, Ma'am Amy. And yes, Mr. President, we accept her proposals. I think it will be good. It will harmonize the provisions that were placed in the measure. And therefore, during the period of amendments, I'll recognize her for the amendments. With that, Mr. President, no other member wishes to interpolate the measure. If it's possible, we can close, with the permission of the body, we can close the period of interpolation, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, period of interpolation is closed.
And Mr. President, I move to suspend consideration so that Senator Amy can come up with the exact wordings. Maybe till tomorrow. We can propose the amendments tomorrow and hopefully approve on second reading by tomorrow. Therefore, with that, Mr. President, I move to suspend consideration of the measure.
Any objection? Consideration of the measure is suspended. Mr. Majority Leader.
Yes,
why
Mr.
is
President.
it that when you are sponsoring a measure, Senator, the Minority Leader is not interpolating?
I had already sought his I already actually called him and sought his support, Mr. President, prior to this. That is the secret with our minority floor leader. You have to seek his support.
No, I deny that the minority leader called me, Mr. President. It's just that I find the proposal very meritorious, and therefore
Yes, yes.
I see.
they
All right.
with their credentials. Because he called me, but I find the proposal meritorious. It is for that reason that we did not interpolate. That's for the record.
Thank you very much to the minority floor leader. That is very welcome development for us, Mr. President, and I thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. President. We do not have anything else on our plate, Mr. President, so we shall go home early today, unless there are other members who wish to raise any concern.
We shall prepare for a big day tomorrow.
That's correct, Mr. President. I think it's a long day.
357.
I think it'll be a very long, tedious day tomorrow, Mr. President. Again, I'd like to reiterate to our distinguished Senate President our request that if there is a proposal that is a bit contentious, for us to suspend session but continue with our discussion online without the feed, without the live feed, so that we can discuss freely, Mr. President, if they can do that for us. Thank you.
All right.
So, with that, Mr. President, Senator Pacquiao, I think, is recognized.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. President, I just want to clarify what time we will start tomorrow. Same time, 3 o'clock?
Same time, 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock. Yes, 3 o'clock.
Okay. I thought it's earlier.
There is a commission on appointments in the morning.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right.
Okay, so with that, Mr. President, I move that we adjourn session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow, Wednesday, October 14, 2020.
Any objection? Hearing none, the session is adjourned until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Wednesday, October 14, 2020.
Bye, everybody.